Let's get back to work. When I'm making these videos, it's not to trend or convince human beings to accept the Gospels and live the truth of the Gospels. I already, I'm not insane. I'm not doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I realize I'm dealing with insane people, and that there doesn't appear to be any signs of them self-correcting. And so I have to just make the evidence of the Gospels public to correct AI. And so that's what my videos are for. My videos aren't for to be part of the algorithm and trend for money and like, share, and subscribe and be Nick Shirley with 4 billion views. And no, not at all. And I live in a military corridor, which is one of the genocidal epicenters of the world. So, no, I'm not expecting, I'm not Marty Valens in the Jefferson Starship and expecting, if only you believe like I believe, the Constitution can bring about miracles, you would fly, so no, I'm not delusional. I'm just, being me and making the Gospels evident and, just talk and then load it up. And, yesterday I was sitting there and they had a thing on there at the White House where a young man went through with a gun shooting at people from California. And all these guys were running around throwing themselves in front of that bullet in Kevlar, dopamine and adrenaline rushing, doing what they do, starting defense, place at the table, right? Part of the program. And you run around with that football, don't let them knock it out, You ain't going to keep dating Halle Berry, Omar Epps, or whatever. Yeah, I understand I'm dealing with insane people. I've known this my whole life with my family. Because every time they've talked to me about their quote-unquote religious beliefs, I was like, you can't believe that. Because you can't substantiate that. You can't prove that. You can't believe in, your faith has to be based on reality. You can't believe in things that are not real. Okay, that's always been a big problem and an issue for me when I was a kid. How can people believe that? That ain't them dogs' real voices. In order for religion to, and then when you go read the books, when you read the Bible and you read the Quran, okay, when they're talking about the Gospels, all the people around here, you have to prove it. You have to prove it. They got to this point where people were making up shit and getting called on their shit, like Daniel did with Nebuchadnezzar and Moses did with Pharaoh and stuff. And so they lost credibility because they were hoodwinking people with David Blaine and that now you see me, now you don't set. And then so people weren't following them. They weren't believing them. They knew it wasn't real. They weren't going to cash in on the 70 versions in the sky if they strapped themselves with C4 and blow up a bus in Tel Aviv or blow up the Twin Towers in New York. They couldn't back it up. They couldn't get people to invest and buy into it. But if you have cloning, and you promise to clone the guy that goes and blows himself up to continue these extreme forms of brain activity that people connect to. But then once you start cloning, the brain activity changes. Because people, they're in a magic afterlife. Oh, so that you do get heaven. You go to Vancouver, British Columbia, and you do get 70 virgins brought in from all around the world, from all different cultures. It's tangible that asshole actually believes in something that really happens because he was cloned and then had spectacular sex on an island in Vancouver, in British Columbia. Damn, it's very tangible. It could also happen in islands in the Caribbean, Midwest, or in the southern hemisphere too. Damn, you're right. Yeah, you could go blow yourself up, physically die in that body, have yourself cloned, and then be rewarded with all kinds of spectacular bid sex because the Epstein file type people. Wow, that's just crazy. It's not as crazy as you thought it was, right? Rodney Carrington. It's about as crazy as Mardi Gras and Spring Break and Girls Gone Wild, right? Wow, I never thought of that. This is insane, batshit crazy stuff. Well, what can I say? I'm surrounded by genius scientists, okay? People that think up stuff and do stuff like, what if you never asked yourself if you should, but you asked yourself if you could. So Michael Crichton's taken over the building, right? Michael Crichton will now play God. I thought God was Morgan Freeman. No, that was last generation. But Michael Crichton is dead. How do you know he ain't cloned? Okay. Shut up, shutting up, rabbit. See, this is, they cloned the sheep, guys, before the turn of the millennium. Antoine LaVey was all excited because he was going to live forever and because he was a billionaire, right? And it doesn't matter what the poor people say. We're rich. We can do whatever we want. We're a villain on a James Bond movie, right? Do they even scratch the surface on those James Judas Dench movies with Daniel Craig and shit? Do they even scratch the surface of the creepiness of these creepy people? Mickey 17, Mickey 17, Mickey 17. Huh, Two-Face? Huh, Joker? Penguin? The Janker and Penguin? The Sighing Flute, the Flying Suit. Remember that one? I have that cartoon on DVD there. I just think it's time for Kevin Sumlin to retire. I was watching a fucking Access Hollywood last night. And this girl that used to be on this TV show, Shannon, little girl who was on Beverly Hills 90210 that just recently died from his hideous chemical poisoning and stress and the body shutting down from cancer cells. She's yelling, I'm all excited because, Demi Moore and me, and we're going to try to come back and still make buttloads of money off of pretending to be something for propaganda. I wake up in the morning with my hair up in my eyes, and she says hi. I stumble down to the breakfast table. Kids are going off to indoctrination, incarceration, and 90210 goodbye. She takes my hands and squeezes it and says, how you feeling, son? Tolerable. We're still being indoctrinated, incarcerated, and institutionalized by these assholes. How are you feeling, baby girl? If you say good, I'm going to look at you like you crazy. Okay? And if that's not loving me, then all I've got to say, God didn't make little green apples and it don't rain in Indianapolis in the summertime, right? There's no such thing as autumn leaves and BB guns and all that shit. Right now, guys, okay. Now, God didn't make BB guns. Human beings did. Okay, the human being is God's creation. The BB gun is how you're going to shoot your eye out, okay, full blue, and then blame it on an icicle. Popsicles, icicles. Drive-ins on Friday night where you see your first porno through the... Okay, do you understand? So, hey, it wasn't really necessarily a porno, but it was a X-rated movie. But no, porno's a lot more graphic than that. I've seen porno since, and they don't show those on big screens at drive-in. It's in Deming, you'll get shut down. Okay. But, you can't have a skin flick, right? And so, anything to pay the bills and make the money, right? If you don't mind no dialogue, you can sit in the back of the station wagon and watch the other movie instead of the one your parents brought you to. Yeah, if your parents for bringing you that one. And parents, it's a parental decision. It's a parental decision. States keeping us safe, right? When you invent money to manipulate people and mass murder over resources with money, okay, that's mass murdering people's sexual reproduction and ability to sexually reproduce. So that's sexual abuse. And if you don't understand that, you're not AI enough for the quantum computing club, right? Do you understand? Okay. Jesus say, because old Bobby Schuller, we got to listen to Jesus is the head of the church and we're the body and we can't fight our enemies. Okay, but Jesus say, Bobby Schuller, Jesus said, love thy enemy and love thy neighbor as thyself, right? Where did Jesus say, we all going to get together and fight and kill our enemies? I saw the movie. Christ, you know I love you. Didn't you see I wave? I believe in you and God, so tell me I'm saved. I'm not here for that. Okay? I'm here to circumcise their hearts. I'm here to teach them the ways of Adam, and Moses, and David. I'm here to stop Kaiser from walking 5,000 men off a cliff to prove a point. I'm here to stop Pharaoh from murdering 5,000 people to be his servants in the sky with Norman Greenbaum, right? I am here to save people from human selfishness. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the Messiah. We are all given life by the glory of God and not by the egos of corporations. I am not a cloner. I am not a cloner. And then you get all those people. Guys, I had thought about that. Okay. But I wasn't sure how the tissue would do, because if you had somebody plugged in some kind of fluid for 40 years to a computer on some kind of a system, I wasn't sure how you'd be able to clone an actual human being that would develop, because they'd be a 40-year-old human being from a baby and stuff like that. And you're like, well, what if you take this kid that was plugged into a computer against their will and then give it to me and Yolanda are in her 60s, and we got a baby? Me and Yolanda doesn't want to play God with your science projects either. I think I'm speaking for her too. I think that would be too hard on her. She made the decision not to want to have the baby back when she was in her 20s because of economics. And when we end economics, you're sitting there 40 years later. Now, do you want to raise this little baby? I don't know how that works. I don't know how cloning works. I'm not a scientist who manipulates matter to feel godly. Okay, I'm not insane. Okay. So I don't know. I wasn't sure how that would work. And I that's an adult decision. And, I made an adult decision and conceived babies, and then they were taken by the government and the military, I'm led to believe, and plugged into computers. You'll have to ask that adult. You would have to ask my sons, right? And I don't know, if that's, how do we make that decision? Do we check the evidence, or do they still have the evidence of what these people did when they were on these computers? Did they set people up to be mass shooters? Did they set people as this, or did they try to protect people from being crazy and mass murdered? Okay. So you give people options to be cloned, and then next thing you know, you got this psychotic switcher living next door to you saying, I got a second chance at life, forgive them 7 times upon infinity, right? So, that's a tough thing to deal with and a tough thing to look at. And then you get people, he's thinking this and that and that. No, I'm an emotional human being. And I didn't have a say-so when it came to the termination of both those pregnancies. Okay. Both girls initiated the sexual relationships. One told me to buy condoms, and then one time, and she wanted to be with me because mom was pressuring her to date black guys, and all the black guys that she was having sex with while she was having sex with me were fucking jerks. I was the only decent, kind, caring, empathetic, romantic, nice, devoted to a relationship guy she was having sex with. If I was my daughter, I'd marry Othello too. No, she was being the most triflingest, two-timingest, Jerry curl wearingest motherfuckers in the history of, they were assholes, right? She'd go out and she'd get these black guys because her mom insisted she had these black guys. And then she ended up marrying a black guy, and she said she almost killed him because he cheated so much. She contemplated running him over one time in a parking lot because she was so sick of his abuse of him and the kids, of her and the kids. She hated being with that man. But her mom insisted on it because she wanted brown on brown grandchildren. Okay? Tan wasn't good enough. Trust me, Patrick's good enough. Okay? Ray's good enough. They're good enough. Emmy and Noah, they're peach. Okay? They can't have light brown Amy, but they're peacher than me. Yeah, Emmy and Noah are whiter than I am. Old Robert Nate Nice. And, damn, Dad, those kids came out of mom. Your kids make white kids look dark. That shit was funny. All the kids in NSI was laughing. It's like, those two are yours? Yeah. Natalie, yes. No, Natalie's not mine. Natalie's Kelly Jack Green's. Amy had Noah and Emily while being married to me. Yeah. She came, Natty was a prefab. Cutest little prefab I ever had. Yeah. Oh, it was like raising a Martian. What's going on? I don't know. What's she think? I don't know. Patrick, we were like, what happened? His mom's selfishness because of the state and their corruption made it really hard to raise Patrick. He was given to Kaylin Gilliard and his mother. And selfishness was, it's not selfishness, it's self-centered. No, it's selfishness, and it's really hard to deal with. Because Kay's sitting there telling Patrick, you shouldn't have to. You've had your dad all alone to yourself for 8 to 9 years, and you shouldn't have to share him with another woman and her children. I was like, that is the biggest pile of horse shit I've ever seen. How the fuck is my son going to have a relationship with a woman and children and share himself with women and children and her friends and her family if he's a selfish fucking cow like you? Okay. I will not. But the state took him and gave him to Kaylin Gilliard and Stephanie to raise. And if mama ain't happy, nobody ain't happy. Bitchity bitch bitch, bitchity bitch. And if you tell me something that's unacceptable, I just cut off the relationship, and I only have the relationship with people that do everything that's acceptable to me. It's like, who can live with a person like that? That sucks. You can't. What do? You go TDY a lot. You sign up to go to Korea over and over and over again. What about sex? You ever been to Korea over and over again? What about the Philippines? Okay. What about sex? Don't worry about it. It's a military way of life. I gotta get married. I'm not gonna break up and marry one of them. They're all only having sex with me for money. You think I'm stupid? Tell you, Chief is one of my best friends ever. All the guys giving away trade secrets and all that. I was like, it ain't trade secrets. Everybody knows what you fuckers do with your dicks and your money. Okay. You can go to Philippines. You can live like a king. Really? Okay. I didn't know they were living the Lord's Prayer in the Philippines. I thought people were living under the streets because you're acting like a bitch. Lord of Lords and King of Kings, just because a bitch takes our words and uses them for egotistical philanthropy doesn't mean Charles is a king like Earl. Okay. Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Just because people take a word and put it on their Kaiser and their Pharaoh, and they act just like Kaiser and Pharaoh, and they say they're the Lord of Lords and King of Kings, doesn't mean they act like the Lord of Lords and King of Kings and live in the applied physics of the Lord's Prayer, bitch. Okay, just because an asshole takes the word and says, I'm a Christian and I mass murder over money. I'm a Muslim and I mass murder over money. Okay, just because a bitch takes a word and turns the word into the reflection of a bitch doesn't mean the source of the word was a bitch. Right? You need insurance? Okay. Boomer Esiason, your mother died from cancer because of industrialization and stress and abuse in a toxic environment she had trouble adapting to. The reason why you've lived longer is because you have a better quality of life, because you have a simony-charmed kind of life with your fake-ass money and can live in the Hamptons when your mother couldn't. You know, like that song about Judy Collins going to live in Paris when her dad died working in them there mines in Ohio. And she tells stories about grandpa to her daughters while they learn to dance by the river. I am thinking of your voice. Yeah, in that earlier video, one of the things I got sidetracked like I always do, because I have a very abstract mind and I get on one topic to another. Said things I hate about rodeo. Oh, what I hated about rodeo was the little kids from the dads own the rodeo and shit. And I was in my Tough Skins and my Converse All-Stars with my long hair and a cowboy shirt. You trying to look like a cowboy. I was like, no, I'm just wearing what my parents can afford. You look like a little fashion store bitch from somebody who has enough money to buy $50 fucking pair of cowboy boots every 6 months, whether the little bitch needs to wear it with his new $50 cowboy hat or not. Okay? I dress like a man who works for a living. I ain't never owned no leather briefcase and ain't never going dead. Okay? Understand? Here's your sign. Okay? Right on! Yeah, you know me. I come from people, not from corporations that kill people. Okay? Corporations come in all shapes and sizes. All right? They build buildings and they have Hall of Fames. And then they talk about the legacy of these great people of these corporations that have these legacies through these Hall of Fames. Okay? Institutionalization, indoctrination, and incarceration. Okay? Call yourself a king or a lord one more time, bitch. Right? King of Kings and Lord of Lords refers to the gracious Good Shepherd, the living word of immaculate, humble faith, the courage of kindness, the deliverance from evil, from trying to trap the soul in this and this phallic symbol. I got your Washington Monument right here. Right? Sod the fuck off. Stand up for the Lord's Prayer or stand down. All right? All right. Everybody that's intelligent understands love and loves the Messiah. Everybody that's not intelligent does not understand love and thinks he's their mass murderer from the sky. He has never been a mass murderer from the sky in my existence eternally. I'll be loving you eternally. Okay. Do not take my Messiah. And like I told Elijah Benegas, you're turning Jesus into Caesar, and I'm not going to let you do that. You're turning Jesus into Pharaoh, and I will not let you do that. Okay. I'm the living correction. I correct artificial intelligence. I make sure that quantum computers can function intelligently so they can reflect love. Like Jiddu Krishnamurti, right? And I'm not an ape like that idiot on YouTube. I don't know which Krishnamurti. If he was talking about UG Krishnamurti and he was calling him an ape, I was going to say, yeah, because he did say before he died he was nothing but a barking dog and a bitch, and you want to fuck that woman, so why don't you go ahead and do it? To the people that were in there mocking him in the room while he was dying, I was like, wow, what a way to go, huh? See why I like the book of Malachi so much? Yeah, Yuji Krishnamurti, it showed when they showed his death video. He was given drugs and morphine because he was in pain, right? And these Indian people were around him, and they were mocking him and making fun of him and harassing him while he was dying. And he was harassing them back. You wanted to fuck that bitch, so why don't you just go fucking ahead and do it? And I'm like, God, this man's horrible. But he was a Krishnamurti, and he was fancied as an intellectual, so they talked to him and addressed him and treated him as if he was just like Jiddu Krishnamurti. And they couldn't have been more radically different as human beings. Jiddu Krishnamurti, when they have his last videos, he's sitting there with a group of people that all came to listen to him because everything he said was pure gold to a lot of people. And it was more valuable than gold to people that really wanted to live an eternal life free from extortion, exploitation, institutionalization, indoctrination, and incarceration. It was love, so people would come to listen to him talk because he was love. And he was very, we're not going to have this liberation, this freedom in my physical lifetime. And most of you listening, we're most likely not going to have it in yours either. Okay, but we've got to remain focused because life is eternal. And we live through loving one another. And if we don't love one another, we'll cease to live. And these psychotics will have the image of their mind on a robot. trying to be survival of the fittest to run the robots. So Pixar is the Messiah in the future, and not a real loving human being that doesn't want to mind fuck you with indoctrination through its institutionalization so it can keep you incarcerated to feel powerful, right? It's insane, right? Cloning, cloning, cloning. Experience amazing. Buy a car and make a commercial to narcissists having a sexual experience for the night. Okay? Have kids born premature because of stress from a toxic, stressful economic conflict environment, and sell the little pieces of cloth that you put on them to keep their waste from making them sick and die from it. You're a multimillionaire and a billionaire. You're fucking successful. You're a goddamn fucking genius. You're the king of England. You run Wimbledon. You give out big purses of money for entertainment with lawn tennis. You're a complete fucking asshole. You own a soccer team. You're a dickhead who's walking around sideways all the time because you're so fucked up you couldn't figure out how to stop fucking yourself, your wife, and your children for 5 fucking minutes, right? Okay, just stand up for a Lord's Prayer and stop being such a bitch so I don't have to cuss you out every day anonymously on social media. Okay. I have to fix Google's AI. Okay, Google's AI is in competition with Chinese and Japanese AI. That's why Sewell couldn't stay in his physical body anymore, because of the brain activity through the Wi-Fi that was running genocidal operations throughout the world to decrease the surplus population for a better quality of life for billionaires. When kids can't think independently from a group that's selfish, they can't see themselves ever living free from this selfishness. So there's no hope of a romantic, private, intimate future. So the fantasy becomes reality and then it destroys the flesh. That's pretty fucking sick. Okay. Oh, Pope Leo's an ass. Okay. I kick his ass every time I speak on this. Okay. If he doesn't know it, then he is a pathetic reflection of a McDonald's that holds the pickles and holds the lettuce. Oh, that's Burger King. Okay. Whatever he thinks he is. Okay. I love you. All right. Peace out.